You feeling better?
Yeah.
Antibiotics?
They do all of it.
Well, good morning. If you are joining us online, we are in 1 Corinthians and in the world but not of the world, I think is the name that I've given for our Bible study through this. Welcome. We are going to get started in just a couple minutes. Yeah, I got asked the question, having the notes from last week, if you have them, great. We actually made it through, so I'm not going to spend a bunch of time making reference to those specific notes again. And because I'm not focusing on structure today, I don't have notes for you. But on the weeks that I do, I will. But I am going to be making an observation in just a moment about that structure, because we're going to go back a little bit so we can go forward.
Sounds good.
Well, let me open us with prayer. Loving Heavenly Father, I give thanks for today, and as we have the opportunity to be in your word together, may you bless us. Ask your Holy Spirit to inspire us, give us ears to hear, and I pray, Lord, a heart that is ready to respond in obedience. I pray that we come with anticipation and excitement. You want to speak to us, and so, Lord, let us hear. Bless us again in Jesus' name. Amen. So, last week we looked at really chapter 1, verse 17 through chapter 2, verse 2. A little bit, I argued of a little bit of stitching. I mean, typically we say, verse 18 kind of gets us into the argument, but there's a little bit where, Paul was sent, and then Paul came. And in that, we spent time looking at the structure. And it was part of the interest of this is that Paul was sitting here and he's saying, I did not come to you with wise and persuasive words as the world does. And there was a little bit of historical context, Greco-Roman society, sophistry is in play, and I say that in all literalness, that there were sophist philosophers, and Corinth was one of the places that they would go and even compete during the Isthmus Games. And this is the part where Paul is not wanting to be associated with them. Now, he ends up talking about the wisdom of God and the power of God over and against the wisdom of the world, which is God's foolishness is greater than human wisdom and God's weakness is greater than human strength. But he did it in a way that had a lot of artistry. That Paul can put together fine-sounding arguments, and he can use words artfully, but this is not what it's really about. Now, we paid attention to structure in one part to look back and to say, wow, this is beautiful, and there is a reason why this passage, just kind of jumps off the page of very much sings to us almost with the way that the words ring out. Now, with that, one thing for me that we're trying to do as we work our way through the letter is we want to pay attention to trees, but ultimately we want to look at the forest. And we want to see the bigger picture of where things are going. It's an observation to make that this is a really beautiful forest. In fact, somebody planted it, and it just didn't all spring up on its own. But that's not the most important part. And so today, we're going to go back a little bit, looking at the big argument so that as we come into the next section, which is chapter 2, beginning in verse 2, and moving forward, we can make sure that we understand and see what's going on here. So there's some sort of divisions going on in the church of Corinth. And these divisions are really based upon a worldly attitude that is within the people. And the first division that we lean into with this is there's a lining up behind different teachers who have come to the church. There's Paul, there's Apollos, there's Cephas, and then there's even some people who say, well, we're the super spiritual ones and we just follow Jesus. And Paul's leaning into this. Now, why? Well, it would seem that God called Paul to Corinth. Paul spent 1.5 years there, and he planted the church there. Now, Paul recognizes that this is really God's work, but he had a part to play. And he's not worried about Apollos or Peter. God's using all of this stuff, but you guys, you're taking it and you're twisting it. And the reason that they're twisting it is because you're holding on to the values of the world, which actually lead to destruction. You think that you're being wise, and in fact, you are looking like the foolishness of the world. And at its heart, it would seem that one of the issues is there are many who are ashamed of Paul. And I use that word very intentionally, ashamed, because we're in this honor-shame culture. And in that culture, honor, glory are the main things. And anything that you can do to avoid shame, you are going to do, because being shamed is losing, and being able to have honor and glory is winning. And the typical way that you get honor and glory is you earn it, and well, that needs to be qualified. You're born with it, and then you earn more. And so, again, very stratified society, few people at the top, many people below. Only the people at the top are the real winners. But everybody underneath seems to be mimicking what they see at the top. Ministry is inherently something about trust. And I think that the reason that Paul starts here of all the places is because he's dealing with the fundamental issue first that's going to get in the way of them really trusting in what he has to say. If they're ashamed of him, they're not going to listen to him with much respect. And so he starts here because he's got to come in in the role that he has, which is an apostle, and begin to lay a foundation that deals with this issue that's going to get in the way of them listening to everything else. Now, Paul is probably very aware that he won't convince everybody, and he doesn't have to worry about that. He's going to speak the truth of the gospel as God lays it on his heart to do, and he's going to be praying and hoping and looking for God to use this truth to be at work in people's lives. And so he's going to present arguments that are persuasive, but they will only be persuasive if you are really open to the Spirit. Now, this is one of the issues. Not only are they probably ashamed of Paul, some of them at least, right? Why? Any guesses on some of the things that they're ashamed of?
Well, he was born.
He worked. He built tents. I mean, that's not the philosopher that I went to. It's like, who's your great hero of a philosopher? Oh, it's Joe down at the tent shop. It's like, what? Who's that? Well, some schmo. I don't. But I've never heard him. Well, he wasn't that persuasive, But so there's this part where, he did not present himself the way that they wanted, and part of it was labor, part of it was tent making, part of it was, it would seem that he was more concerned about speaking plainly to make sure everybody understood than to try to beautify everything so that people would pay attention to his rhetoric over and against the substance of his rhetoric.
Plus, he was born a Roman and had all this stuff and turned away from it in Damascus. And
well, so
how much would that
in this sense, I mean, I guess the great point. He had Roman citizenship, but he didn't make it a big deal, and that's exactly the opposite of what they would want. I mean, they're still stuck in the game. How do you become great? Well, you boast about yourself, and you boast about all your accomplishments, and you make sure everybody pays attention to the stuff that you do. And Paul was like, I was resolved among you to preach Christ and him crucified. I was not there to tout my own horn. I was not trying to make myself look great.
Ralph,
Yeah.
sometime, can you comment on the preachers that are on TV and the mega churches and the people that have this machine and they're just what your take is?
Yeah. So the question is as we think about this passage today and then we look out at the landscape, what do we do about celebrity pastors and televangelists and people who seem to be more concerned about making a name for themselves? I mean, there's probably a few things to say. Some of the stuff that we see, I would say, is definitely wolves in sheep's clothing. You have people who are preaching a gospel and it's not really the gospel because it's some sort of a health and wealth thing. And, I mean, it's literally out there still. You would think that, people today would just, okay, the Lord's laid it on my heart and I need to get one more jet. And if you guys will each of you pay $1,000, we know that we're going to be able to get this jet so that I can have another. You're just like, you got to be kidding me that people fall into this stuff. But then they're like, snake oil salesmen, but this is you. This is how it works. You just name it, you claim it, you get it, and God's going to do it, and He can do this for you, and you're just like, oh. So and that's the part where the people who are listening to that, they're still trying to take control of their life in a way of not trusting in God, but just getting rich and living the world's game.
Or even like in this movie called Jesus Revolution, there's a guy that starts out as a street pastor and he's probably on the right track, and then the power just gets to him and he goes.
Well, and that becomes so. Yeah. You've got the wolves in sheep's clothing, and then you have the people who God has gifted with talents and abilities, and then in the midst of it, they do get caught up in the culture. And what the observation that I would make is that, falling into the trap of celebrity is a trap for anybody, but it is definitely antithetical to following Jesus. And what it seems to me, because I've known a couple of people who definitely have had the platform that they could have fallen into the trap. And like Eugene Peterson became one of the best known evangelicals, and he hated the celebrity stuff. Yeah. And, and it was hard because people treated him different, and he'd been in a church for 30 years of his life that had about 250 to 300 members. And everybody called him Gene, and and that was it. And then he goes, and now he's written the message, and he goes to seminary, and all the students are lined up at his door to get autographs and to listen to his wisdom, and so it's something you're going to have to fight against. And I think that one of the big dangers, and this could be true for anybody. I mean, it's not just celebrity pastors, but I mean what I noticed is there's another person that I know, and what happens a lot with these people is they end up having failings, right? You know, I mean, like, when you look at the issue of celebrity pastors, that there is a much larger proclivity of them to have sexual scandals, have monetary scandals, have issues where ultimately, you know, they've created abusive environments where it's their way or the highway and people just get stomped on. And it seems like the big thing there is that they really end up losing community. They end up thinking that they're all that, and they don't have any voices that they really listen to that help keep them in perspective. And there was one person that I knew of where he had to step down from his mega church, and it was really it was being unwise, where he was well intentioned, but he didn't have an inner circle of people that he said, okay, so here's what I'm looking at, here's what I'm thinking, what do you guys think? Or people, you know, it could be men and women. What do you all think? And you know, instead he just did it on his own, or they surround themselves with people who just tell them yes. So there's wolves in sheep clothing, and then there are people who will learn how, in the midst of it all, to not fall into the trap of celebrity. And then there will be the people who fall into the trap, and probably one of the big reasons why is that they don't have authentic community and people who really know them and voices that they will listen to instead of always just listening to themselves. And that's a warning for all of us.
Right.
If we always think we're right and everybody else is wrong, and we don't go in saying, okay, I need the body of Christ, and sometimes I'm going to get some things wrong, and I want to be open, and I want to be humble, and I want to learn, and then I need to repent, and I need to be honest. And I need to live the Christian life authentically. And that was what Paul was doing. He was living the Christian life authentically, and they didn't like it. Why weren't you just putting yourself out there and being great? Have you looked at Jesus? You know, I mean, that's so. Okay, so then, you know, there's a little bit of this background of what's going on here. And then he talks about, you know, I did not come to you with wise and persuasive words. I came and I preached Christ crucified among you, a stumbling block to Jews, foolishness to Greeks, but to those who are being saved, the wisdom and power of God. And you know, he built that argument for a while, and now we are in chapter 2. And I'm going to just start in verse 1, and I know it has structure part, but all of this stuff also flows together, and we're going to come out of this place of, I came among you, and I came not with wise and persuasive words, but I came preaching Christ crucified. But now he's going to clarify, and it's building, because it's going to be building towards calling for a decision. I know that the message of the cross seems like foolishness to the world. But in reality, it is true wisdom. And, you know, and this is the part where what we find in the world is we find this mixture of God-given goodness mixed with some corruption that twists it so that it doesn't become the good that it's supposed to be. God wants all of us to be wise. Absolutely. But then we take this pursuit of wisdom and then we twist it into something that becomes unwise. Because true wisdom is the fear of the Lord. And if I have this authentic reverence for God, and, you know, fear of the Lord, Old Testament, Yirath Yahweh, it's not a simple thing, be afraid of God. It's it's this idea that gets captured about what it means to be in relationship with the living God, and it is this sense of profound reverence and awe mixed with the reality that I'm dealing with with the one from which all power and knowledge comes. So, is he a tame God? No, he's not tame, but he's good. And so I'm going to walk a little bit lightly, but it's not because I think he's going to be wrong towards me or mean to me, but I respect electricity. I respect God more. So that's Yirach Yahweh. That's the beginning of wisdom, and Paul knows that. And you guys are sitting here and you're all chasing wisdom, but it's not real wisdom because it puffs you up instead of puts you in proper relationship with God. So, chapter 2, verse 1, and so it was with me, brothers and sisters, when I came to you, I did not come with eloquence of human wisdom, as I proclaimed to you the testimony about God. For I resolved to know nothing while I was with you, except Jesus Christ and him crucified. I came to you in weakness, with great fear and trembling. My message and my preaching were not with wise and persuasive words, but with a demonstration of the Spirit's power, so that your faith might not rest on human wisdom, but on God's power. So one of the challenges for us in something like this is that we're listening to one side of, this is an analogy, we're listening to one side of a phone conversation. We know exactly what Paul's saying, but we don't know everything that he's pointing to. But the people on the other side know exactly what he's talking about, or they have a much clearer idea of what he's talking about, because there become some questions in this. What does it mean that Paul came, in fear and trembling? We're not quite sure. But what he's saying very clearly is that he came in weakness. Now we know that even as he came over into Europe, there were times where he ended up having to flee. And so, for example, when he was in Philippi, he got arrested and put in jail, and then there was the earthquake, and then and then in another, I think he got chased out of town again because of the idol makers were getting up, and then the story of Ephesus will become even bigger. But there becomes this pattern for him. So it's like, okay, he's coming, but this is not with an entourage. This is sometimes where there is a small group of people. He's not all by himself in this, but some of them are still behind him, kind of cleaning things up because of the chaos that ensued, and making sure that the church was planted there is still going. And so, we look at this and we say, okay, so they're going to have some memory of what it was like when he came to them. And it was when I came to you, did it look impressive? No, it didn't. And there was a place where, I was a little bit shaken. But I came and I preached the gospel to you in the power of the Spirit. And invariably what that means is that that this is the part where it's like, okay, so what does that mean? They know exactly what it means. But this will be something that happens in Corinthians, and it's something that we can go and we can look at Acts. Jesus had trained his apostles and disciples on how to do Christian ministry. And the way that you were going to do Christian ministry was in the same way that Jesus went and did Christian ministry. And you were going to proclaim the good news in word and deed. And it means that there are going to be those who are healed and those who are released from demon possession. With what's going on here, there are going to be most likely words of prophecy, speaking out. Remember, I think it was Andrew who came and said, "Come and meet a man who knew everything about me." And you know, and you have this, and there is going to be this sense where in the midst of God, of Jesus's apostles and disciples going out and doing the mission that they've been trained and called to do, where Jesus says it's very good that I go because I'm going to send the Paraclete, and then he's going to come. And with the idea of is that now you guys are all going to be my hands and feet, and you are going to be the ones where my Spirit works out through you. And so they say, okay, so just go back and remember. When I came, I didn't come and I didn't look impressive, but then I shared the gospel. But I didn't just share it with words. I shared it in the Spirit's power, and you guys came and you believed. And then there is an amazing thing that happens for us in the Christian life. I am sure we all do it. I know I do it. You have these experiences. They're life-changing, world-altering, and then you kind of forget about them. You know, because you know, and the old habits die hard, and you sink into it, and most likely this is what's going on is that they, we became Christians, we committed to this thing, but man, Apollos came, and he was so much, you know, just more artistic than you, and you know, and he was impressive, and we really liked him, and then you know, and so then it's like, well, maybe you weren't all that, and so.
It's like all the diets you have, you know. Gung ho.
Okay, so let's see. This is interesting. My message and my preaching were not with wise and persuasive words. You have your interlinear?
Not with me today.
Oh,
I mean,
darn
I
it.
have it on my phone.
My guess is this, is that message there is logos and preaching is kerygma.
Which verse are you on?
Verse number 4. And this is a little bit of, you know, of this, if I'm right on that, logos, there's the message and its content, and then there's the preaching of the message, and in the preaching of the message, this becomes his part. And I think that this is said this way on purpose because of where he's going.
Logos is message.
Yep.
And what's the other word?
Kerygma.
For preaching.
For preaching.
Yeah.
Okay. So the message there is the logos, weighted word. It's the word that, you know, at the beginning of John's gospel, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And that word there for word is logos. But in the Greco-Roman world, that word has a history, and it is seen as the organizing principle of the universe. It's the rational principle. So what Paul here is making a subtle claim and saying, if you want to know the true ground of reason out of which all understanding comes, it is the message of the cross. It is the Word. It is Jesus himself. And then there's the preaching. And the preaching is the preaching of the Word, but that's an event, right? There's the content, and then there's the actual experience of the content that happens as the gospel gets spoken. And I think Paul says it this way, probably on purpose. The preaching is not something that's merely human.
Inspired?
Yeah, I mean, this is the part where God is calling us to go and to share this good news, and His Spirit is going to be with us, and He is going to give us words. And so this is the part of saying, you know, I came and I brought the message, the words, the content, and I preached it, and you saw the effects of that. And what happens is that fundamentally, ministry in Jesus' name is participation. It's partnership. It is never intended to be me and what I do. It's really about the Lord through His Spirit working in and through us.
Is that why he makes reference to it being not with wise and persuasive words, which would come from him, but rather from the Spirit?
My message with preachings were not with wise and persuasive words, but a demonstration of the Spirit's power, so that your faith might not rest on human wisdom, but on God's power. And to be perfectly honest, I mean, here is a beautiful picture for all of us of understanding the call that we have to go and serve in Jesus' name. Don't make it about you. Don't look to be the center. Don't look to do it in your own strength. Don't look to do it in your own wisdom. But this is going to be something, like I'll pick on Alpha for this. This is a part where in the Alpha course, we have a prayer team that is praying because we believe that what's most important is actually what God's doing. And we have a chance to participate with him. And the way that we participate most importantly is by the praying, because we're leaning in on God. And then, but there's other parts to it too. You go in and you have a meal with people and you sit down, and sometimes, you don't know where the conversation's going to go, and then it goes in this really spiritual direction, and you're just kind of left with, okay, Lord, this is awesome, and here you go. And, and then you go in and you have some small group time, and somebody asks a question, and you're like, man, I've never heard that question before. What do I even say? Okay, Lord, I know you're here. Give me words. And then you say something, and the person's like, oh, wow. And you're like, woohoo. But when you live that way, it helps you actually grow closer to Christ, because you see that this is participation. And instead of puffing up, it builds up, because it grows your sense of confidence. But when you go in and it's about my abilities and my wisdom and my knowledge and what I can do, and so.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
That's kind of why when we put together a team for each alpha, we don't go for the best speakers and the teachers and the people who are really good at that. We just get, like me and whoever else the Lord calls, and we lean on him. We don't have to be teachers.
Reliance.
Reliance on him completely.
Yeah.
We don't go after the best teachers, the best speakers. We go after the ones people are even going to be, really, you? And but you go back and you think about David going into battle, and he's like, okay, Lord, yeah, but you got too many people. So what I want you to do is that you're going to have whoever bends down and drinks like a dog. Those are the people that you're going to bring with you, and then everybody else stays back, and and like only a fifth of the people, and you're just like, what? And it's like, yeah, but see, if you go with that many people, you're going to think it was all about you. But you've got to learn this is about what we do together.
Jericho.
This is. Yeah. I mean, these lessons repeat themselves throughout the scriptures. And they are things that we seem to forget about. Like I said, with the celebrity pastors. Yeah. It all begins with this sense of, I can't do this in my own strength or power. And then over the years, you learn techniques, and you get comfortable. Mm-hmm. And I don't even think about being afraid of getting up in front of people anymore when I speak. I don't even worry. It's just like, it's just not even there. It's like, I've been doing this for too many years.
Not too many.
But do I still pray every day and every week as I prepare messages? Lord, let this be your words, not mine. Absolutely.
Well, that's the difference between the preaching, the logos, and the message.
But the danger is this. Do you really believe it, or are you going through the motions? Yeah. Okay. Verse 6. I didn't come with you with wise, persuasive words. I didn't come with you trying to build this on human wisdom and eloquence and all of that stuff. But we do, however, speak a message of wisdom among the mature, but not the wisdom of this age or the rulers of this age who are coming to nothing. No, we declare God's wisdom, a mystery that has been hidden and that God has destined for our glory before time began. So when we come across the word mystery in the New Testament, your first guess should be something formerly hidden but now revealed as far as God's saving purposes for the world.
So it is revealed now.
Yes, the mystery has been revealed in the coming of this age, which is the coming of Christ.
Okay.
So the word there is mysterion, and so, you know, Paul is the one who primarily uses this word in the New Testament, and then that's the part where we go, okay, so it's not a whodunit.
Yeah.
This is not something that you and I have to figure out. It's something that we could not have figured out, but could only be revealed. And it was not revealed in ages past, though it was prophesied and anticipated, and it was God's purposes, but it was something that had been hidden. And this is going to be a key thing, because he's going to be sitting here in this section, and he's going to be talking about the reality of the real deep knowledge and wisdom is for you to dig into the depths and have deep understanding. Things that may be hidden to most people, you can actually discern. The more information we have, the better prepared we are. Biblical wisdom, we are leaning upon the knowledge that comes from the creator of the universe about how the fabric of the universe is, so that we can live well in it. And the more wise you become in true wisdom, the better life that you will live, because the biblical idea of wisdom is skillful living. And so I know the right... We just came out of Proverbs, so we spent a bunch of time talking about this Old Testament concept of wisdom, knowing the right thing at the right time, in the right way, and doing it. All of that is what, and Paul's sitting here out of that tradition, and he's saying, I know we've been sitting here and saying that God's foolishness is greater than human wisdom, but we are talking about true wisdom here, and this is what you really want. And the reason that you really want it is because it's really good. And so don't go for the cheap substitute of the world wisdom. Instead, this is the way to life. And there's a little subtlety here, but it's one of the accusations against Paul is, can you give us a little more meat? I mean, it's kind of a little milky here. You're a bit, you just do these things, and we want the deep things. We want the hidden stuff. We want to go really super spiritual. And so Paul comes and he says, there is a wisdom among the mature. So if you would like to be among those who are mature, then this is the way of it. It is not the wisdom of this age or the rulers of this age who are coming to nothing. No, we declare God's wisdom, a mystery that has been hidden and that God destined for our glory before time began. That sounds pretty cool, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, God has this big saving purpose, and he's been working it out. Now, again, the ancient world was going for glory. This is a significant word. It's both here in the argument, and then, again, in the honor shame culture, winning, the thing that you were most concerned about, the purpose of life, that the entire ancient world was basically convinced This is, you know how like in our modern world, we've got the bumper stickers that say whoever has the most toys wins?
Yeah.
And we live in this consumerist, materialistic society
fabric.
that says if you want true happiness, it's found here. Except if anybody starts to play that game, you have to rent storage sheds, and then you have all this stuff, and it starts to weight you down, and it doesn't feel nearly as good as what they promised it would. Well, in the ancient world, it was not stuff, and it was not money, it was glory.
So you do justified, sanctified, glorified, but I can never remember the definition of glory. I don't have.
Yeah, that's where I'm going.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So the word here for glory, because what we want to try to do is we want to get away from abstraction. If this is just an abstract idea to you, then this is you're probably going to lose it. So in Greco-Roman culture, glory, which the Greek word here is doxa, is basically your reputation.
Oh,
And yeah, there's a little more to it, but the basic idea is that, is like you have honor and everybody else wants what you have. You've achieved something, and we all know it. It's greatness. It's status. It's you're above.
Material?
No. It's not material. So in the Greco-Roman period, where everybody was aiming for glory, the goal was not money. Money was the way to get glory.
status.
Okay.
So it was my reputation. It was my name. It was the fact. And this is a little bit in the Greco-Roman society is that they basically kind of had a gloomy perspective on what was going to come in the future. We're going to die, and we're going to move into a disembodied state. And mostly, the overall position is it's probably not going to be better than what we have right now. Except if you're a real winner, your name and reputation will live on beyond you in this realm. And if you're really a winner, it'll be like written up in the stars, right? And you'll become, and maybe in some way even deified, who knows, something. But that's, and so, this is the part where kind of within that system. So it really is my reputation, the name recognition, the feeling that when I walk in the room, everybody stops and looks at me. And they want to sit next to me, and
Celebrity.
It's a little celebrity, you bet.
I think the way you could best explain it would be anybody in here that's been in the military, or the wife of a military. This would be a good way to put it because the wives get it by who their husbands are, and you get it there. They walk into the PX anywhere they go. They're recognized, their children are recognized, not by who they are,
Yeah.
but by who their husband is, where he's at. Like the colonels, their children and their wives are.
And the one who actually has the glory is the colonel or the general.
Right.
But by just being in association with them, I get a little bit of their radiated greatness.
Right, they get their.
And there's privileges that go along with the honorage, but the real goal is to be the top dog.
Right, and then that's kind of what they have.
Well, and in any system where it's like we're gonna boast about all our awards and we have all of our medals, and so you've got it. And whoever walks in and has the most, you're like,
They
ooh.
mean nothing except in this little world.
Yeah,
but,
and the most
but
bars.
But on that little world, it's kind of what the Romans had. It's like they live in this little world where they walk around there and.
Well, and the nice thing for the Romans is that they basically conquered most of the known world.
Right.
So everybody had to play the game now the way that they were playing.
And they had
the
the
game.
dumb robes that.
Yep.
They identified on the dumb robes who they were and what it meant.
If you wore clothing of a status higher than you, you could be executed.
In the military too.
Because so they guarded this stuff. Now, the idea of glory is not Satan's idea. It's God's idea. God actually is the God of glory. And God is the one who wants to glorify us. So there's a truth here. The name matters. Reputation matters. Now, this word doxa, and this idea of doxa, glory, is rooted not in Greco-Roman society, it's rooted in the Old Testament. The Old Testament word for glory is kavod. And, interestingly, and if you've never read it, one of the best modern reflections on the biblical idea of glory is an essay by C.S. Lewis called The Weight of Glory, and I highly recommend it because he's wrestling through, because he knows what these words mean, and he's trying to really understand, is it really this? And there's two big ideas of glory out of the word kavod. Kavod comes from and derives from the word weighty, heavy. Now, in this gravitas, somebody walks in and they have presence. They have weight. They have glory. And God is the one who has all glory. You know, when he reveals himself, everybody stops and they look. The other idea of glory is luminescence.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, radiance. And Lewis jokes about this, and he's like, I mean, what? This is, I mean, one is like reputation, and the other is like shining like a light bulb. I don't, you know, and
I can't get words around it. It's just like...
yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
Does doxa, is that like go into the word doxology?
Uh-huh.
Is that-
Yeah. Doxology means words to glorify.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So in that...
So, and words to glorify are praise. So doxology is praise. Now, here's the thing. The most natural thing in the world to do is to glorify that which is glorious. And so glory is just part of the very nature of God. And you and I are created to be his image bearers, so we are created for glory. But it's not glory that resides in us, it's reflected glory. And if we find our place, we're going to be glorified. And we're going to shine like the stars in the heavens. And we are going to have a good name. And we will never allow our name, which represents our person, to sink to a level of disgrace, because we will always choose the good. And so there's this part where the good, the true, the beautiful are all things that are aspects of glory, and life is here. Now, the problem is, in the world's way of glory, it isn't grounded, first of all, in relationship to God to glorify him. It's about self-promotion. And so, I've said this before, it's the art of boasting. I mean, they had books on this in the ancient world. They were all concerned about touting their names. And Paul's sitting here and saying, we do preach a word of wisdom, but it's not the wisdom of this age or the rulers of this age, because all of this is passing away. Because they're trying to tie their glory into themselves. And all they're doing is reflecting themselves, and all they can reflect is the darkness that is inside them, because they are not the source of light and goodness and beauty and greatness. God is. But you see, God's greatness, it is not this selfishness, it is this selflessness. And and then there's a little bit more mystery here, and even with it, which is in the doctrine of the Trinity, which is the fact that we have this God who is one and three, and the way that we see real glory is ultimately real glory is love, and it's self-giving love, and it is a selfless love, And the glory of the Father is revealed in the Son and the Spirit. And the glory of the Son is to glorify the Father, who is the source of all, and to lift him up, and then to send his Spirit so that we can participate in this. And it becomes not this me looking at myself in the mirror, being fascinated with myself, but it's me looking at this other, someone who's like me, and wanting what's best for them and lifting them up. And it becomes not selfish, but selfless.
And we kind of give up our name to take on the name of Christ, so that our status is associated with his name, right? Or the glory?
Sherry, for people online, Sherry goes, and so we give up our name to be associated with Christ. Yeah, kind of, but it's more like this. Instead of it being about my name, it's going to be about his name.
Right.
Because I make it about his name, he now gives me a promise that that he has a name for me that's been hidden from all eternity. That's my true identity. And in glory, that will be revealed. And there will be this uniqueness about who I am as a reflector of his glory that nobody else has. And so instead of just one-way streets where everything flows up and nothing comes down, the one at the top goes to the bottom, lifts everybody up, and then everybody then wants to glorify him, and then he goes back down, and then he lifts everybody up, and it is a completely different sort of life than the one that they were falling into.
Thank you.
Okay, well, man, this is good stuff, I hope. It's taking much longer than I expected. Okay. We do not, however, speak a message of wisdom among the... We do, however, speak a message of wisdom among the mature, but not the wisdom of this age or the rulers of this age who are coming to nothing. No, we declare God's wisdom, a mystery that has been hidden, and that God destined for our glory before time began. None of the rulers of this age understood it, for if they had, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. True glory belongs to Jesus. This is where all glory comes from. He is the Lord of glory. And so, and you know, it becomes a simple thing. If they would have known that he was the great one, they would not have crucified him. They would have been trying to use him to get more greatness for themselves.
Exactly.
That's how the game was played. Clay.
Two words that you, the one word, the mystery,
Yeah.
God's mystery wisdom.
Yeah.
And the NIV says the secret wisdom. I see mystery as being something that we figure out, and the secret has been given to us.
Yeah. So.
Two different words.
Yeah. So the. Let me see what this one says.
Mystery.
Is it verse 7?
Yes.
Yeah. So, no, we declare God's wisdom, a mystery that has been hidden. This is the newer translation of the NIV over against the older one. So the secret and the hidden are two ways to translate the same word. And so it's modifying the mystery. And so what's going on here is that Paul is emphasizing the fact that this thing that was not known was purposely kept hidden so that it could be revealed at the right time. And again, so that and when we think of the mystery here, we're not thinking like a whodunit where we're trying to figure it out. What we're thinking is this is God's saving purpose that has yet to be revealed. And so that saving purpose that has yet to be revealed is that ultimately, so what had been revealed? The day of the Lord had been revealed. And in the Old Testament expectation, there was going to be this day of judgment where God was going to come back. It got sharpened a little bit because it's going to come through a Messiah, through the line of David, and he's going to be a king who's going to sit on the throne forever. And so all that Old Testament stuff is swirling around saying it's something like this. And there's going to be a resurrection. And so the Lord's going to come back and he's going to judge, and there's going to be a resurrection. And everybody who is with God goes into glory. And everybody who's not is going to go into suffering, hell, darkness, Sheol would be the Old Testament. So you have that and you go, okay, so that's what they knew. There was a general sense of some sort of resurrection and final judgment and setting everything right and evil being dealt with. All sounds pretty congruent New Testament, right? How? Brute force power, right? God comes back, King of the universe, sets his throne down, says, time for judgment of people, and here's what's going to happen. Well, that's what you would have expected,
Right. So
but it didn't happen that way.
no.
And when it happened, instead of brute force power, he said, turn the other cheek. And they're like, what? And they didn't like what they heard because it was weakness. And it wasn't military might. And it was some of it even self-correction. You guys call yourselves Israel, but you're not being Israel the way that God's calling you to be Israel. You look like the rest of the world because all you have inside of you is hate. I want you to learn how to forgive. And our world's still struggling with that today.
Absolutely.
So it says in the Help Word Studies, it says mysterion in the Bible is not something unknowable. Rather, it is what can only be known through revelation because God reveals it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the part where you won't even know that you don't know it
Right.
until it's been
Right.
revealed.
Right.
But it's his plan of salvation. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm going to have to end there because we will come back and we still have, we didn't even get to the part that I thought we were going to spend a bunch of time with today, which is I'm gonna do this though. You see verse what is that? Verse 9.
9.
However, it is written.
Yes.
Okay, your homework is this.
Okay.
Go and find that Old Testament reference and look at it in the Old Testament. And we're going to have a discussion on that next week when we come together.
So what no eye has seen, that one?
Yeah, what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, and what no human mind has conceived, these things God has prepared for those who love him.
Okay.
So a little homework. It'll be interesting. It's not going to be necessarily. It's going to take some work on this one, just so you know. Any prayer requests for today?
For Bob's service just
Yeah.
Saturday, for Kay and her family.
Wonderful. Lord, we thank you for today, and we thank you that you do offer us true wisdom. And Lord, may you bless and help, and each of us respond to you and to live our lives not for our own glory, but for yours. May we trust that you will glorify us. And instead of being wrapped up in myself, Lord, may we be wrapped up in you. And so we lift up Kay to you and Bob, and we pray, Lord, that as Bob is in glory and with you, more alive now than he has ever been, we give thanks for our hope, and we pray comfort and blessing for Kay and her family, and we give thanks, Lord, for the opportunity to celebrate his life. In Jesus' name we pray.
And Susan Carbaugh still in